Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Allie Ingersoll. It seems like every week Raleigh is making some kind of list. WRAL digital journalist Jessica Patrick is our guest today to talk about the variety of lists and what it is exactly about the triangle that everyone's loving. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So what's the latest list that Raleigh has landed on?
So the latest list is that Raleigh just ranked number 2 on the Milken Institute's best performing large cities list. It actually ranked number 3 last year, so it jumped up a spot this year. And this is a big deal because the list from the Milken Institute, they look at 403 metro areas, and they base this ranking on 13 indicators like high-tech impact, access to economic opportunities. And yeah, Raleigh jumped to number 2 on that this morning. So it's a pretty big deal for Raleigh.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty big deal for them. And this isn't the only list that we recently performed well on.
Yeah. The U.S. News and World Report also just ranked Raleigh number 5 on the best places to live for quality of life. And they looked at the Census Bureau, the FBI. They did a public survey, and this list is based on like crime, quality of healthcare, even commute time.
We have done a lot about commute time here, looking at census data, which you know is one of my favorites to look at. I think it's so fascinating that people here have really taken to other kinds of mode of transportation. So it's fascinating that they look at the commute time. What I also thought was really interesting was that for this list, the other places that landed on it, it surprised me that Raleigh was on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So those 5, the top 5, are Ann Arbor, Michigan was number 1, Boulder, Colorado.
All right, as a Penn Stater, I have to make a quick comment about Ann Arbor. Can't figure that out, but all right.
I know. It's interesting, right? And then and then Boise, Idaho, Honolulu, which I guess that'd be cool.
Yeah, that sounds like a great quality of life.
And Raleigh came in at number 5. And Allie, I have to tell you, Raleigh gets on these lists a lot, these great places to live. But as we're reporting on that, we're reporting on how expensive it is to live here.
Yeah, I recently did a story looking at the census data, finding that Raleigh is the 3rd fastest growing big city. And like you said, that really trickles down to people then when it is making these lists, because obviously people want to move here, but then we kind of bear the cost of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see these lists and that's great. That's great. Of course, we love that our home is such a desirable place to live, but it's challenging for the people who live here, who want to live here comfortably. Another list I looked at in March, Smart Asset actually listed Raleigh as the 23rd highest salary needed to live comfortably. So according to this list, a single adult needs an average salary of $102,752, which is an hourly wage of $49.40 to live comfortably. And that's more than double what the average Raleigh resident makes.
That's a lot of money to have to make to live in this area. And I feel like that's changed so much over the last several years. We'll have more to talk about after this break. Welcome back. So, Jessica, I've looked a lot at real estate data, especially recently, just this past week, and we know that the cost of living is going up here. Can you talk about how that's impacting people?
Yeah, we at WRAL have been reporting so much in the past several years, but especially in the last year, about how expensive it is to live here, how a lot of people probably aren't able to live here comfortably. So new data, we reported this yesterday. In fact, new data shows Raleigh homes are selling for about $100,000 more than the entire South region. And home values in Raleigh are up more than 50% from 2020. I remember a story we had a couple years back where people flooded a Raleigh home that was listed for sale. I think it was somewhere around $250,000. And a realtor posted video of people lining the street. You couldn't even get in to see the house. It was a sea of people just desperate to get a home that price in Raleigh.
Yeah, I remember that story as well. And just that video was really striking to look at. I follow a good amount of Instagram or real estate agents on Instagram. And I feel like they're always like, listing soon. And then the house is down. They're like, just kidding. Someone already bought it. They're just flying off the market here. It's wild.
I have friends from out of state who have bought homes here without seeing them.
Wow.
Their parents and their realtor has seen it for them and said, you're going to like this. You should move before someone else takes it.
Yeah,
and that story we just mentioned, that was years ago.
Yeah.
So
It's not changing.
Several years ago. Yeah, it's just going up.
Yeah, and talking about that growth and a lot of people moving here from out of state, the census data shows that about 500 people are moving to Wake County every single day. 500 people. That is a ton of people to move to one area in one day. So what do we know about where exactly they're coming from?
Yeah, there's a lot of in-state migration, according to the census. The top 5 places people are moving from include New Jersey, New York, several other North Carolina counties, Virginia, and California. So many from very far away. And residents in all these other states have higher incomes on average, data shows, which is also a contributing factor to what is driving up those housing prices.
Yeah, when I talked to one of those real estate agents for a story I did recently, he had this family coming from California. They basically, same thing you were talking about, bought a house without ever seeing it and then redesigned it to their liking. And they were coming from California, and they're just buying these places that are like hot spots around the downtown area, which is making this area so competitive. And people really want to be in these walkable communities, I'm finding here. So something I really love about North Carolina, I'm not from here. I'm from Pennsylvania. I moved here from Buffalo, though, so the weather's just a tad bit different. So I love the weather here. I am like pretty outdoorsy, and you get to be outside all the time. So when I talk to other people, I always ask, like, why Raleigh for you? So you're actually from this area, though, I guess.
I am. So the main reason, what has kept me in Raleigh so long is family. I was born here. My husband's parents are from here. So we both of our parents still live here, so we've just always been in this area. And I was born in Cary. I don't live in Cary anymore. I always thought I would end up buying a house in that area, but because of what we've been talking about with these house prices, my husband and I bought a house in Clayton 2 years ago, just trying to get away from some of those prices and get a little more bang for our buck. But yeah, I mean, when I still go to Raleigh and Cary a lot to shop or to take my daughter to the really cool parks and playgrounds. And that's what I've noticed. I've lived in this area almost 35 years. And I remember as a kid, downtowns like downtown Cary, people weren't down there after 8 p.m. And now there are bars and restaurants and breweries. I just reported where I live now, Clayton, a new barcade just opened up, and they're open till midnight on the weekends. So there are more places for young people and young families to go out at night. Or I love all the museums and playgrounds in this area. I mean, there is just so much to do. Every weekend, every night, there's something to do. There's somewhere to go. And I think that's a big draw and also a really big change from especially like the smaller metros around Raleigh.
Yeah, so when we're talking about these lists, it's usually just Raleigh they're talking about, and it's not Cary and Johnston County or anything like that. But you have just noted that the growth goes beyond just the city limits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other interesting lists that you've reported on that Raleigh has landed on? I have one on the top of my head that I love. It was a list a couple of years ago, and Raleigh landed on one of the sweatiest cities in America. And I was just like, how is this calculated? So I decided to dig into the methodology. And it has to do with the humidity and the heat here, but also how many people are active. So it was like, yeah, this is a lot of people. It is good, but you're also just like, why is this being calculated? Who's looking at this? What's the purpose?
It's so funny.
It's super funny.
Allie, we've also had stories about how bad the mosquito problem is here that might tie in with all the, all the sweaty bodies and all the heat.
Yeah. Are there any other ones that you were like, Raleigh?
When you asked me to join this podcast, I remembered, and this is years and years ago in 2018, but I remembered a story I posted on WRAL.com just because it stuck out in my head. So in 2018, Apartment List, they analyzed 70 major metros, and 3 North Carolina cities ranked in the top 10 for best cities for dating. Okay, so this is in 2018, but still, Raleigh ranked number 5 for dating, Charlotte ranked number 7, and Durham ranked number 9. So that's good news for singles.
That is good news. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for joining me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. If you listen to this podcast on WRAL.com or the WRAL News app, you can also find it in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow the show so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.